interesting. So, how did you end up here?
Well, it's been a long journey, a lot of life experience. I'd have to say that it did start as a child, though. I was kind of raised in a family of addicts. I had a dad who was Canada's most wanted, so we were like constantly traveling. There was a lot of crime involved. I had a lot of disorders as a child. I was kind of like left to my own devices, and that just kind of like progressed as I got older. Like needing the validation. There was a lot of abuse mixed in with there. I ended up running away from home and getting involved in the foster care system. And then from there, it was just all downhill. I had moments of clarity where I could try and, because I always wanted to do something better, like I wanted than what I was kind of like born into, but I just didn't know how to do it. So what I was most comfortable in was chaos. So I surrounded myself with a lot of people who reminded me of my parental figures. It just so happened to be a lot of like gangs and a lot of crime that I was involved in, a lot of the party scene. I was in Prince George at the time. My father went to prison for a life sentence, and I moved to Kelowna, where things just even got worse than they've ever been. And then so the last 10 years, I really couldn't tell you what I've been up to. It's just like there was violence, crime, excessive amounts of using. By the time, and then I got into a relationship that lasted 10 years, and this relationship was very, very toxic. There was so much abuse involved without like traumatizing anyone. There was a lot of hospital trips and a lot of isolating, and so all of a sudden, me being a girl who needed to be in the spotlight to feel wanted, would be hiding in my penthouse on the golf course alone and severely injured and hooked on what ended up being fentanyl. Because in the hospitals, they were giving me pain medications that just weren't working anymore. And so, moving on to the next big thing in my mind.
How long did you do fentanyl for?
About 6 or 7 years.
6 or 7 years.
Yes, wow. And this is kind of before the fentanyl
crisis. So you knew fentanyl was bad for you?
Yeah, I did.
So, because, we look at you today, and there's some people out there, you read social media feeds, it's like, why would you do fentanyl? Like, why? So what was it that got you to, like, keep going to the hospital and keep wanting to do fentanyl and so forth? Like, what is it that, before you even know what addiction is, like, what was it that was keeping you going to doing the same thing, to keep yourself in that?
The insanity piece?
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, the first time I used it, I didn't have any connection with, like, heroin to fentanyl. Like, so I knew, like, the bad things that were associated with that, but I didn't realize that this was even worse. And so when I did it raw off the street, I wasn't in pain anymore. All of a sudden, like, I've been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and so they kind of like put it into check without the medication that I'm currently on now. Like, it just kind of like put everything into place for me. My mood was stabilized. I felt invincible. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. It made me functioning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like I found a miracle drug.
Did you consider yourself a substance user, an addict, during that time?
At the time, I've always known that I have had an addictive personality. Like, I do believe that it comes through your family. And there was a lot of awareness around like 12-step programs and stuff for myself,
yeah.
But I was in complete denial.
Yeah, like you didn't relate to the people down here.
Absolutely not. No,
because you're in a penthouse, doing the same drugs, but you're in nicer clothes and so forth.
And working in an office as well, in a skyrise in Kelowna. So like, it takes all people.
So what was the thing that got you to change?
Well, just I couldn't do it anymore. Like I really believe, like, I wanted change throughout the years, but it just got to the point where I absolutely had nowhere else to go. Like, I was backed right into a wall. I knew that my physical health was dwindling. It was really, really hard to keep these walls up, like to pay my rent. Like, to the smallest tasks were becoming alarming. The daily grind of like wondering how I'm gonna get what I need, like my medicine in quotations. So like it ended up taking me to like worst parts of town, like such as the one that's outside, to like pick up. And my associations changed, the lies started to get too big, and also like I was dying. My mental health was gone. I was brain injured, like brain damaged. I didn't actually think that I would come back to 100%. So that basically, I knew something drastic had to change. I hatched a plan with one of my friends for me to get out of that situation, get myself into a detox facility. I had family on board. They were all very afraid of my lifestyle, mind you, so this was all up to me. Nobody else could make this change for me. A lot of people have tried to help me throughout the years, and I burnt bridges everywhere I went. Like nobody could trust me because I would always just go back, right?
How many times did you try to get well? Like, are you like a 5-time treatment person? Are you a 1-time treatment person?
I'm a 1-time treatment person. However, I didn't have the education around it at the time. I was thinking that detox was treatment. So, you go to detox, you get off of it, you start feeling a little bit better, and then you get out in the real world.
You're treated.
Yeah, you're cured. Everything's fine. Everything's great. And like they'll tell you to get a DNA counselor, and they'll tell you to go to meetings and stuff like that, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But I really didn't want to look at myself, and that was something that I knew I was going to have to do in order to actually make a huge change. Like they tell you to change people, places, and things. You have to change everything, your associations. For me, like moving out of Kelowna and coming to New Westminster was it was a blessing. I didn't realize the doors that were opened up to me until I got here. And I haven't looked back.
So we started up the show a little bit about medication-assisted therapy. Mm-hmm. So you're an opiate addict, you're a fentanyl user. What do you think about the comments? A lot of people think that you should be on opiate replacement therapy for 2 to 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
I'm pretty twisted inside about it. I know that everyone has some very strong core beliefs about it. Personally, I'm going to use my own personal experience. When I went on methadone or Suboxone, tapering of any sort, or even just going on to a program of that sort, I didn't stop using. Because what it told me in my addict brain was that I could maybe use successfully, that I would have a crutch to fall on so I wouldn't get dope sick, or because you're so afraid of coming off the opiate because of the physical and the mental symptoms that come along with that you don't know how, you can't comprehend that a life without any of that, that freedom. So when I went into detox 14 months ago, I refused. Suboxone was just coming in to the facilities, and I refused it, and I was in there for 10 days, and that was a lot longer than the people who were getting put on it. But I am so grateful that I did that, because it has been a one-time straight-up treatment thing. I did end up going to the Westminster house, and I had already had 3 months clean, and after the care on that was another journey in itself. But it was really hard in the beginning, don't get me wrong. It's not easy to get off something like that cold turkey, but I did it. That cliche saying that this too shall pass, I kept repeating that to myself over and over and over again, and yeah, it did pass, and I'm free.
Can you access what was different at that time where you had the motivation to quit cold turkey?
I just was done. I was actually done. There was a part of me, and then when I went to detox before, and I did do the tapering, or I did go on a program, I wasn't done. I just knew that I was getting sicker faster. It was extremely expensive. My family was getting involved. My friends were starting to notice that I was dwindling. My career was affected, but I wasn't ready. I don't feel like it gives people a good message to put them on that, because you're just replacing one with the other. And I feel strongly about that, and I was warned to be careful with my words by people in the community. However, I have lived through it on both sides. I've abused methadone. I've abused Suboxone. They can be abused.
Well, no one can take your lived experience away. Right. I mean, I believe that we deserve equal access to all forms of treatment and freedom of choice, but I also believe in giving people the clear options. Yeah. And, if you're a physician in British Columbia, or you're a nurse in British Columbia, and you have an opioid addiction, you get sent to a private treatment center, you get abstinence-based treatment and you go back to work. But if you're below the poverty line or kind of like, not knowing or have that support, we call it recovery capital, well, you just take medication for the rest of your life. And there's so much discrimination in the healthcare system in Canada, and I think until we combat that discrimination, depending on your value of worth, then we will never get over this overdose crisis. So there's moms listening to the show, there's women, who may be struggling today, and if you're on an opioid replacement therapy, like, this isn't to say that your recovery doesn't matter, like, your recovery matters. This is just Krista's story, and we need to listen to all stories. What do you, some woman comes to you and needs, like, how do you inspire someone to get well?
If there's anything I could say to anyone who may pick this up, like, there's so little education around this cycle of abuse, and like, getting educated, getting help, reaching out, not lying for your partner. I had so much shame around it. Like, I felt like I was the problem. I felt like I deserved all this stuff to happen to me. So I constantly just, like, let it continue. And that did emulate from my childhood as well, was that shame and guilt. And, like, get help, reach out. Like, we have so many, we're access to so many different outlets that we can reach out to and, like, get pulled out of a situation. I mean, if you want something to be different, you actually have to do it. You can't get anyone to do it for you. But talking about it, reaching out for help, knowing that you're going to be safe. But you have to be willing to walk away. And I did. I actually walked away with just the clothes on my back. And I left everything behind. And it wasn't easy to be in, like, detox with, like, one pair of pajama pants. Trust me, it wasn't pretty.
So you say do it.
Just
you want to
do it.
Okay, so
just
somebody that's listening, they don't know what that means. So
okay.
what is doing the do, as we say? What is doing it? What do you do today to stay clean?
To stay clean, there's so many different things. Like, I'm more of a maintenance kind of thing now. My first year was a little different. I went to counseling. I did a lot of work around trauma. I went to a 12-step program. I got a sponsor. I involved myself in the community as soon as I could. I started performing right away. And I kind of brought that here to New West too. Like, there's so many different things that you can get involved in, like extra activities to, like, meet people. We have a choir at the house that I went through and I currently work at. And it's kind of, like, open to everybody recovering community. That's kind of a little hidden secret at the moment, but anyone can come and, we actually do, like, a choir structure, and people learn about music, and it's a really good outlet. There's so many different things, there's sports teams, there's so many events, like, even conferences, like the doors that open up to a person once they close that old life behind, it's just, I can't describe to you how awesome life is. It's awesome, and it's going to be a bit of a journey, and that's the beauty of it. You don't really think about that. You think about the end result, right, as you're going through it. But yeah, so get your butt to a meeting and find women that you can relate to, right?
Now, there was, you mentioned, the importance of talking about it, and I think, as you were describing, your family dynamic, your childhood, foster care, things like that, a lot of people get stuck on, like, this is why I am the way I am.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And, like, okay, so it may have a huge influence on your belief systems, on your values, like you said, this sort of what you want to have around you on so many levels. Like, when did you realize that you can't change that it's sort of what, like, you just have to accept it, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Acceptance, that's a huge practice.
When did you, like, because that takes some maturity in the brain, you know what I mean? Like, but people want to get into it right off the bat. They still might be detoxing. They still might be, you just need to eat a sandwich, like, and get some nutrition and get some exercise, get the blood flowing again. Like, when was it for you where you started to have that sort of sense of acceptance?
I've kind of accepted. I was about 17 when I first started accepting what was going on. I didn't know what life without chaos looked like. I didn't know, but there was something inside of me that knew there was another way. I mean, you look at people who have like families and like they can go to their daily jobs and they don't have these problems.
Right.
And it's like, why can't I have
That's
that?
what you think.
Yeah.
That they don't have these
Well,
problems.
that's what you think because it looks so picturesque.
If I just had that, my life would have been different. I wouldn't be
Right.
dealing with this right now.
But I wasn't like you can't feel sorry for yourself because you're not going to get anywhere.
So did you meet women in the treatment center that had these loving families that are sitting in the
absolutely.
same boat as you are in that moment?
I did meet a lot of people who had a lot of similar experiences. You know, we came from all different experiences, but the feelings and emotions are all the same.
Yeah.
And, you know, like addiction is a family disease. So it does affect everybody, and however it affects you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But like keep your eye on the prize, and you stay focused on recovery. Like recovery, it's changed my life. It's changed my family's life. You know, like fortunately today I have parents that I actually look up to, and they're all in the program as well, and
Right.
you know, and they're doing recovery. And then I have family members who are still in addiction, but they are, you know, like they're following me, right?
Yeah.
Like, as they followed me into the fire, they'll follow me out, and that's a beautiful thing, and we can only keep what we have by giving it away to other people. So like I have a purpose today, and it keeps me going. It gets me out of bed. It gets me motivated. It makes me it makes me tickled to be in places like this with you guys, watching you guys do such amazing things. You know.
Well, your living experience now, just as you speak out loud, as you talk about your experience. I think Susan at the beginning of the show, you know, mentioned a similar story where it's like as soon as you start talking about your stuff that you've been ashamed about or wanted to keep secret and, you know, didn't feel like you had the ability to share what's going on, like then other people start opening up.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think that like we can go to doctors and we can you know search for all of these answers for somebody to fix us, but there's so much importance in that. I mean, you still need to have a safe, healthy environment to open up and have that story time. But it's not like I couldn't imagine walking into a doctor's office or a clinic, sitting down and saying like, "Here's my life story," and him really caring enough to start sharing about himself and a connection to be made. It's just going to be like, "Here's a script and, you know, good luck with life."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's important to know. You know that there are spaces out there where you can meet other people that had a different upbringing, that had the same upbringing, and that story can start being told without that same level of shame attached to it. Right?
Yeah, agreed.
And I mean, I think that's why like this part of, you know, our show, the personal stories, it's such an impact, you know, that we don't even know. Like we couldn't like, you know, quantitatively measure what's changing out there for people when someone shares a story, but I'm inspired.
We're changing the world.
Yes.
We're changing the
Yeah.
world, yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shows about addiction, there's a lot of books about addiction, there's a lot of conversations about addiction. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of conversations about recovery, and this is one of
Now
those.
there is.
This is one of those opportunities to talk about
Krista
recovery.
would be the ideal candidate for long-term opioid replacement therapy.
Well, yeah, she would be like not even just a candidate. It's almost like you have to be on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what was told to me.
So,
as well.
you know, Krista, did you know, like, if you went to certain treatment centers in Canada, we won't name them right now, and even certain detox centers, you would have to sign a medication contract that says you will take your Suboxone while you're in this facility. You won't ask what the merits of Suboxone are while you're in this facility, and you will not ask the physician to taper off Suboxone while you're in this facility. Did you know that?
I've heard rumors.
Did you
about
know that on Facebook? Yeah,
I've
so
heard rumors
Krista,
about
you would
that.
have to sign that contract. Can you imagine signing a contract saying you can't ask any questions about your medication?
Yeah, I like having choice in life.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
But you gotta admit, the time that you're making that choice, like you're not.
You were not all there.
Right?
You were sick.
And it's a very sensitive time that you would
Yes.
allow someone to make that type of choice in that time of their life where, like you said it, you didn't even know if you were going to be able to come back.
Right.
You know, from that. So,
Yes.
like, yeah, I mean, some professionals need to take responsibility in that, you know, finding out what's that person's next step. Do they have a safe place to go? Can we put them on, you know, something that's going to get them there, you know, I mean, it's just that's I think the lack of insight into that person's story and
Right.
what's going on next is,
Yeah.
is the missing piece.
Thank you so much for being on our show.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
really appreciate it. If you like what you hear, you can go to facebook.com/Talk Recovery Vancouver, and we're on iTunes, we're on SoundCloud. TalkRecoveryRadio.com is our website. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your story, and thanks to Susan Stanfield Spooner from Goji Go sharing that story. And stay tuned for those books that we're giving away. Check it out on our Facebook page. Stay tuned for World Poetry Cafe. This is Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, and we are going to leave with "Victims of Life," the Avett Brothers. Beauty.
There's a cycle.